Pearl of Wisdom. I can hardly believe it. And I see so many faces that we haven't seen in a while. And of course, all of our familiar faces. Welcome to everyone. I am really excited about this Pearl of Wisdom, our 108th Pearl of Wisdom, miracles. Now, last week we talked about manifesting, and today, this evening, we are going to be talking, and those of you who are with us from India, morning, we are going to be talking about miracles and the 7 systems that make up the anatomy of miracles. So it's really interesting to me that, Mynoo's going to give us this information about what makes each system tick, and then how to utilize this understanding to become the master manifestor of miracles in your own life. So there's this key, this secret that you're going to learn where you can accept and expect miracles. And that should just be the norm. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but tonight we want to have everyone really integrate it so that you can come to expect that miracles, not only should they happen, but you deserve them to happen and you can bring them forth exactly the way you want. As Mynoo said, tonight's session is about life being awesome and absolutely beautiful. And I am so excited. We have a full house. We are going to jump right into this. Thank you for all who are joining us on Facebook Live. I feel like there's this like beaming light coming in behind me, which is so appropriate for tonight's miracle manifestation and the secrets on how we can do that just with ease and grace, effortlessly. And I'm like 2.5 years. Can you believe it? We have been together on this journey for 2.5 years. And here we are tonight on our 108th Pearl of Wisdom. And here we are with Mynoo, Maryel. Thank you all for joining, and I can't wait to get started.
Thank you, Catherine. I know, my gosh, 2.5 years, 108 Pearls of Wisdom, and all those nuggets of wisdom as well that we have done in between. So I look forward to our session today, and I'll give you a little sneak preview of what's coming next. So thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, hello, wow, Mary Malloy. Middle of the night there in Ireland.
Hello, Mynoo and everybody. It's a joy to hear you and see you, and Catherine and everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
So 108 Pearl of Wisdom about miracles. The first thing is, let's understand what is a miracle. Now, many of you have heard me say this before. I got this revelation when I experienced a very specific incident in my life where this was the first wedding, my niece's wedding of the next generation. And I was due to go to India in a few days. And my friend JP was there and my friend Gina was there. And we were, JP and I were traveling to India. I wake up in the morning, I'm in Bali in my home, and my face is about like 2 or 3 times its size. It just was huge. And I could barely open my eyes. It was just like a slit in my eye for eyes. And I was in a lot of excruciating pain. It was like an energy attack or an allergic reaction as the doctors diagnosed it. And, so, and in a few days that the swelling subsided, but it subsided like a balloon. So it just shriveled up and my face was filled with wrinkles. And that is the point where I was traveling to the airport. So I get to the airport, I reach the other end at to my sister's place, and I look scary, actually. It looks really worrisome. And of course, my family is like, let's just rush you to the hospital. Let's get this thing treated. And I'm like, no, I don't take any medication anymore. And I allow this thing to, unravel itself. And I had huge revelations. I had like 2 lots of, silence periods where one of them was about beauty and truth. Another one was about, eternal life. And there were 3 actually, and another one was about vibrant vitality. So I had like sequence of 3 silences, which is like 9 days. And there's so much wisdom that is flowing through me. And, I'm writing and all of that is there. We have the wedding, and I recognize that beauty lies in being anchored in your truth. And I take part in the song and dance that we always have in Indian weddings. And, people are talking to me without feeling, in pain themselves. And I'm actually feeling pretty fine as well. And then suddenly, my skin becomes like baby soft, and becomes very patchy. And by the time I get back to Bali, which is about a month later, that the softness of the skin is there, and JP completely holds that, I've had a natural facelift or something. Something did happen to my face. It was pretty phenomenal. So, when I come back and everybody's there to, we have a party at home, and a very dear friend of mine says to me, when something like this happens, which is like in your face, it's always something to do with what we are a stand for. What is the purpose that we've taken on for our life? And I said, oh yeah, I'm very clear of mine. It is expecting and accepting miracles as a norm. And she says, oh, so what's the miracle? I said, well, something surprising happens. And she says, oh, were you expecting this to happen? And I said, no. So, well, hey, that was a miracle. And I'm like, oh no, that can't be. And it was in that revelation that hit me. And I thought, okay, we can't be flippant about these things. If we just declare something as real or as a norm for us, then we really ought to define what that actually means. And I spent the next several days wanting to understand what is a miracle. And this is my perspective. This is what I'm going to live by. So before I go into the systems that make up the anatomy of miracles, let's just first understand, what does a miracle actually mean? And what I arrived at is that a miracle is where something beautiful occurs that makes my heart sing. And I saw that, okay, song of the heart. Well, it's beating. If I just feel into my heart, I can hear the rhythm. It's the sound that is there. And it took me back to the miracle of life itself, when I first had that ultrasound when I was pregnant. And that was only the sound of the heart that you could hear. The baby was hardly visible, but I could actually hear the sound. It was so loud, louder than anything. It was like resonating in every cell. To this day, that sound resonates in every cell. I just have to go back to that moment and it's there. So that means the heart is singing. It began singing from the time that little fetus was formed. And then it's continued, and it keeps singing all the way until we have our last breath. So the moment we have the gift of life is first celebrated with the sound of the heart. And therefore the heart is singing. It always is singing. As long as we have our breath, the heart is singing. That is just so for everyone. Everyone that has the ability to walk or fly, all beings, they have a heart that is singing. So given that the miracle is where something beautiful occurs that makes my heart sing, I can have access to a miracle from the beautiful thing that has occurred. Or if I don't notice any beauty, then I can have access to the miracle by connecting to my heart and asking, what are you singing about? What are you singing about? And then look for it from that point of view. So it could be from outside in or from inside out. Either way, something beautiful has occurred. I can find it by plugging into my heart or I can actually completely be present to the beauty of what's occurred and then go and accentuate and expand it and see what else is my heart seeing that is making it sing. So it's only a matter of making that connection. Now, there's another thing that's really important to understand, which is if a miracle is a conscious and a subconscious rendition of what our heart is wishing to express that it is singing about, then it is plugged into the rhythm of the heartbeat, which moment by moment, the heart is beating. It just is. The journey to a beat is a beat itself. If you are a musician, as the musician's about to hit the drum, that journey to actually making that tap on the drum is the creation of music itself. So that means every moment is only a moment of miracle. A moment is defined by a miracle. So we are moment by moment in this realm of miracles. So expecting and accepting miracles is the norm. It's only a matter of us making that connection. And the moment we make that connection, then we start seeing them. This is a miracle, in the way I'm defining it, is one of the most regenerative aspects of living our life. It regenerates by itself. It is one device that instantly invigorates you in a full spectrum way. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and environmentally. That's just so. So now let's look at the 7 systems. And let's look at each of those systems in turn. And it is these systems that come together and make up the anatomy of miracles. And we'll work on what makes each of the systems tick. The first one is, I talk about our bodies themselves. The first one is the flow system. So our bodies are made up of 3 systems: flow systems, organ systems, and life force systems. Given that a miracle is pegged to our heart, then, and from the heart, heart is the propulsion engine for propelling the gift of life. So from the heart, so a miracle then is pegged to each of these systems: the flow system, organ system, and life force system. Let's look at the flow system first of all. The very specific flow system that a miracle is directly linked to is the circulatory system, which is where the heart is at the center of that circulatory system. So the fact that a miracle is where something beautiful occurs, that makes your heart sing. Every time your heart is beating or is getting into a beat, or that moment in between beats, your heart, there is a beat to it, there's a rhythm to it, there is music to it. So there are miracles that can be witnessed, that can be acknowledged, that can be seen, that can be experienced. So if at any point in time, let's say something really difficult has occurred, and all you can experience and witness and feel is this awful thing that has occurred. All you have to do is just take your left hand, just put it on your heart, and that will make it real for you. Yes, it is beating, it is singing. And then you can go into, you can literally ask your heart, what are you singing about? And one word might come up. And then that one word, you attach your question, okay, how much better can it get? And then you will see literally a flood of words that turning into sentences, turning into scenes of what has occurred. I want to share with you, I knew that we were doing this Pearl of Wisdom. 108 Pearl of Wisdom was all about miracles. So I had a very odd experience, and it was a very heartwarming experience. So I was traveling to my cousins. It was a very specific festival where the brother and sister, establish or anchor their connection and bond with each other. So I was traveling to my cousins. So I had my usual taxi driver, and we, usually I'm doing meetings or I'm meditating, so we don't really talk. But he's heard me be on calls. So now he's got a sense that I've got some spiritual gifts. So he says to me, your eyes are open and you're not speaking to anyone. Can I say something to you? Because I'm really, really struggling. So I said, yes, please do. And he talked about that in the last 12 months, he lost his father and he lost his brother. And he says, I feel so overwhelmed that I have got the entire burden of the entire family and everything. We were 3 earning members in the home. And now there is me. And our expenses are exactly the same. And so I have to really make sure that I do that. And yet I've just had no time to even grieve about what has happened. Because, my dad was well, 18 months ago, and then he became ill. And then it was like the whole world's illness just dawned on, landed on him, and he was gone before we could even, get a handle on what's going on. And then a few months later, my brother goes. He was 24. He's gone. And the doctor said he's got bone TB. But he was fine until he woke up one morning with in a lot of pain. And then he goes to the hospital and they say it's bone TB. And a few days later, he's gone. And then he's talking about that. And so at this point, I can totally see what's going on here with him. And I have to now guide him. He's driving the car. So it is important that he remains. His eyes are tears. I can see the tears rolling down his face. I can also see that he's finding a way of composing himself. So I'd say to him that, look, it's fine. We can take our time. You just go find a place and you park the car and let me talk to you. And then he goes and parks his car. And all that came through to me to say to him was that, because I didn't feel he would receive the miracle lens at that time. He really needed to know what had happened. Why was he made to suffer by his father and his brother, was his question. So the first thing I said to him is that, if your father had somehow survived, he would be in so much pain that you have no idea what the scale of suffering would be. You know what it was like as your father's illness became worse and worse and worse. And it would have gotten even worse than that. And he left because he did not want you to suffer. So it is a complete opposite of what you believe has occurred. But you tell me, describe to me what your journey was in those last 6 months of your father's illness when it got discovered. And I didn't need to say any more. He literally, as if he just took on the miracle lens. And he started saying, so just tell me one thing. Is he in a good place now? And I said, he is. He is actually at peace within himself. but he really wants you and everybody in the family to find peace with his passing. He doesn't mind you blaming him, but he just wants you to find peace in his passing. And he said, you're absolutely right. None of us knew what to do or what to make of it. Every doctor was saying something or the other and sending us from one hospital to another. And I was just, selling whatever assets we had, including the home that my dad built with so much love. We couldn't keep it there. We sold it, but only because our father said to us, I'm only letting you sell it if you promise to buy another home and move the family there. We are not going to be in debt on account of where we live. So he says, we had to buy another home. We did that because our dad was insisting, but I feel maybe we didn't have enough money to treat him. That's why he couldn't live. He was in the hospital, but maybe we could have gone to this one and that one and stuff. And then I said to him, okay, I want to introduce you to this concept of miracles. Now, here I am talking in complete Hindi, right? At this point, I don't necessarily know what Hindi is for miracles. I'm not that fluent in it. I can only really allow a transmission to occur, in Hindi in a way that it lands. So I said, okay, spirit transmit Hindi. And at the same time, I'm consciously registering these words because just in case I have to use them again. So so I explained the concept of your heart singing and all of that. And he says, so I said to him, the way you know that your heart is singing, first thing you have to do is to just stop lying about what has occurred. So you saying you now have the burden of the entire family. We were 3 earners and now there's only me. You have your family. You are the provider for your family. You always were and you always will be. There is only one person that has been added to that family, and that is your mother. And your mother has been well provided for by your father. And what the provision that he made for her is earning sometimes more each month than you are earning. Isn't that so? And he said, yes. So just stop lying. And then you will actually understand why your heart is singing. And literally the floodgates opened in a way that he could, like throughout, then we said, okay, now you can start driving, because the tears dried up and all he could see was the beauty in what had occurred. Then he wanted to understand about what happened to his brother. What happened? What is this bone TB stuff? How could it happen so suddenly? And I explained to him he was born with it. He literally a few days after he was born, he got this. It was never diagnosed. He was constantly in pain. And he came here for a very short space of time to bring about and anchor a relationship based on love in this nuclear family. And to ensure that the family was such that honoring of women in their dignity was the norm for how this family chose to live their life, because this family's lineage does not come from that space. And once he saw that that was happening, it was done. He had the support of his father, who had just passed literally a few days ago. He chose to go. The reality is, if he had lived, you would have just seen him in so much excruciating pain. He would have been pumped with medication that would have cost you everything that you had. And there was no way he was going. That is not why he took this human form. And then he started remembering how tolerant his brother was. He said, now that you say it, I remember even when he was 5 years old, he would fall and he would be in a lot of pain compared to the rest of us. And he would still limp along and participate in play. But none of us really took any notice of that. We just got on with life. Then he cited various incidents, and his heart was just like opening up with love for his brother and how amazing he was. And he then said that, it's my honor to honor my brother and my father for blessing us in this way by their presence and also by their going. And that is the power of, so it literally, I went into his heart and said something, which was certain things like, stop lying and all of that when he's pouring his eyes out in grief. I was communicating heart to heart. So I was very stationed in miracles. And when I say the first system I'm talking about is the flow system, it begins from the heart. It's like suddenly the heart is pumping out oxygen, it's pumping out blood cells, which aren't shriveled and which aren't unhealthy, but there's flow in them. They are nicely plumped up. If we were doing a live blood analysis, we would have seen the transformation in what had occurred just in that communication with him. And he got into flow. And I'm sure he would have made a difference when he got home. The second system that I want to talk about is the organ system. The organ system that are very specific and very specifically honed into miracles is the sensory system. The system made up of our sensory organs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin. So when you wish to tap into this sensory system, you can just focus on one at a time. Let's say something, quite devastating has occurred. So I'm going to continue with this story. I know it's a little bit sad, and yet coming the other side was quite a journey into miracles as this person, came to a completely new vantage point. So last night, he came home last night, and last night he calls me. It's about 11 p.m. and it's odd for a taxi driver to call me, so I do answer the call. And he said, I came home and I shared with my mom, and she wants to talk to you. Are you okay to talk to her? So I said, yes, I'll talk to her. And she's into, I have always been a worshiper of God. I've always done all my rituals, all my ceremonies. I've followed all the fasts, everything. Why has God been so hard on me? How can I see anything other than how hard God has been on me? And yet I have a young family here. My son has to work all the time. My daughter-in-law has got 2 young children. So I have to be here. And I can't see anything. I can't see anything. My eyes are always filled with tears. My ears are always blocked. I can't seem to, get rid of the block in my ears. The food doesn't taste of anything, all that stuff. There are no feelings, and yet I'm overwhelmed with feelings. This is all in Haryanvi Hindi, which is a slightly different dialect of Hindi. Now I'm actually having difficulty even understanding. So, I'm like, okay, it is going to be a sensory understanding is what I'm going to go into. And I'm going to work with the second flow system, a second system that makes up the anatomy of miracles, which are the organ systems. So as she's talking, I just say to her, can you tell me what were the words your husband was using in his last 6 months? And then she talks about words which are all about pain, and I know I want to go and leave me and set me free and all that. Those, like, really, and she's crying with every word that she's saying. So I said to her, your son told you what I said, which is he's actually in a very good place now. He's free of all of this. And can you now just listen to the words you shared with me and tell me what is he actually trying to communicate to you? What is he actually saying to you? And then it's like the switch flicks. Now she's plugged into the miracle zone. And she says, he's saying to me that, that I want to be free and I want you to be free. And then she starts talking about, he's saying to me that in my pain, I see your suffering. I don't see my suffering. I see yours. This is this woman's now interpreting all of this. You know, like she's plugging into her years. And he's saying to me that if you spend time with me, you cannot spend time with your grandchildren. And they are the gift of life that you are to focus your attention on. And that will enable you to actually live your life and feel free with aliveness. It was a very peculiar word that he used for aliveness that she described. And every day when you open your eyes, just listen to the children. And the more you listen to the children, these words that you're hearing from me will be something of the past, a bad memory of the past. That way, you will forget the bad memories, they'll go away. And the amazing time we had together, where we produced this family together, will be what you will remember me by. Now, this is her sensing into her years and really looking at what is actually being communicated as opposed to what am I hearing? And in those few minutes, her relationship to her husband, which was, you know, why did you leave me? How could you do this? And all that stuff. And like she'd created her own story of how burdened she was. And she literally saw that there was no burden. He actually took the burden away. And she was saying, is it okay for me to say this, that he took my burden away? Because now I can't stop smiling. That how amazing he was. And how generous our experience of this life was, and how generous he has been to all of us. And then she goes into, what about my son? I said, but now I'm not feeling sad about my son either. Is it okay? Am I okay to not feel sad about him? I feel there must be something there for him. So I said, okay, let's look at your eyes. Let's take your eyes. And I want you to see your son. You know, just see your son in the last year of his life. And then she started describing all those experiences where he would lose balance. At one point he had banged his head, another point he'd had a crack in his wrist, another place where there was his fingers had cracked. It's all sorts of stuff she started talking about. And then she immediately went into, he never ever made us realize that there was anything majorly wrong with him. But he was in a lot of pain. And first she went into, my God, you know, as a mother, I sensed his pain, but I didn't do anything about it. I was so overwhelmed by my husband and somehow keeping everything together that I didn't pay enough attention to him. How could I? And then she goes into, actually what he's showing me is the resilience of the human spirit. And that whatever you may be feeling, you can still be in your truth. And in that truth, you can always find something to smile about. This is this woman who was like completely shattered and falling apart, explaining all of this to me. And you would say, people would often judge, I mean, she's not educated and all that stuff. You know, she's never really been out. She's only ever lived in this closed insular environment. But look at it. This is what this is a system of miracles, you know, and the organ systems of this, which is the sensory system of the organ systems that we have in our body, are the miracle systems. Each sensory system has got multiple functions. Like the eyes show you what they show you, and you can see that. And they can also plug you into what is the vision behind what you're actually seeing. Your ears, you can listen to what's coming at you, and you can also use your ears to sense into what's actually being communicated. Your tongue goes into what's that hidden flavor here? That is really that juiciness, that yumminess that is making my heart sing. You can touch something and you can feel into it. And you will get a whole different perspective. And you can go into whatever is the smell that's there, and you can actually go into what's that underlying. Just like if you ever bought perfume from a perfumer, and how they layer the different fragrances to create the perfume that is a perfect one for you. Your nose is like that. It will just tell you, it will show you, exactly through your sense of smell, you can completely see what is occurring. And that's using the sensory system with someone who was in complete grief. And she was only able to talk. The taxi driver said to me, she has never spoken about this to anyone. She performs her duty as a grandmother very beautifully, but she never talks about this. She has not even cried as much as she has cried now. And now she's talking. I have forgotten what my mother looked like when she smiled. And she's actually so youthful and beautiful. And that's the realm of miracles, making your heart sing. I'm just conscious of the time, and we are on the third system. This is a big body of work, but it's very yummy. So the third system is the life force system. The life force system is the system that gets your life force energy to move. And there are various life force energies, and there are various life force systems that exist in our body, the meridian points, the chakra points that are there. Your breath itself is a form of a life force system. So the very specific life force system that we are going to look at in the context of miracles is, in the anatomy of miracles, is the energy system. And it is about whatever it is that you give energy to. Whatever you give energy to, you get more of. And whatever you give energy to is not necessarily always conscious. Sometimes there's a subconscious energy that is being given. Sometimes I find there are people that I've come across who've done a lot of amazing self-development work. And there was always a trigger that they experienced that catapulted them into self-growth and really looking inward. There's something there. And deep down, that trigger is still there, and it's often attached to blame of some kind. And it could be blaming another person, or it could be blaming a circumstance, blaming, a situation or an experience that you might have had. But it's not conscious. It is so deep down, but it's there. So whatever you're giving energy to often is either reinforcing that blame, or that, as a result, that trigger, or running away from it. So in this miracle realm, how you work with it is you really look at, okay, the fact that I'm having this experience and it doesn't actually feel that great. You know, most of the things are good, except there's one or two things which just don't feel great. So, okay, I'm giving energy to something. That is what I'm getting more of. So if you notice a pattern that is developing, you're giving energy to something that you're getting more of. Now you can spend hours on end figuring out, what am I giving energy to? And you can do that, it will help. And you can actually use the miracle system, which is you can immediately go into, so what do I want more of? What I have is there's a little bit of yuckiness in it. Most of it is yummy, but there's a little bit, or it is, oh my God, one yucky thing to another, whatever it may be. Okay, just acknowledge that, okay, that I'm clearly giving energy to some stuff that I'm getting more of. So what do I want more of? Okay, if I had that, then what am I going to give energy to? What would I be giving energy to if I had that? So yesterday, when I'm talking to the mother of the taxi driver, I took her. Because once she started beaming and something opened up, I saw that she was oscillating between, it can't be right that a woman who's lost her husband and son can suddenly have this big beaming smile. And she would go back into, oh, I really must be feeling sad. And then, but she couldn't help stop smiling. So at that point, I did ask her that, okay, tell me, when you were crying earlier, why were you crying? Because every ounce of you, every part of you was feeling the grief. It was real. It was your truth. And because you were in your truth, you actually got the strength to be a wonderful grandmother to your grandchildren. Despite that, you didn't feel the need to talk to anyone, but you were actually giving energy to what was your truth. So now that you have this new understanding that your husband and your son are in a good place, the reason why, what could have occurred had they continued, and that they actually left to set you free and anchor this love and dignity for women in your family with this understanding, what is your truth? And she says, my truth is that I must respect them. I must respect the choice that they have made. And then just let them go. And then I can be free to choose. And I can choose to live my life in whichever way I want. And I said, okay, so if you are to choose to live your life in whichever way you want, what would you do? Because when someone is in doing grief, for example, and then you turn them around, it's important when that turnaround happens to anchor it in actual action, because that brings the mind along. Otherwise, it can all become very esoteric and they will forget it. So I said, so what are you going to do? And she says, oh, I'm going to get the roof of our house properly done. So then when it rains, the water doesn't come pouring in. So I'm going to solidify the roof. Says, okay. I mean, this was not an answer I was expecting at all, by the way. So she's now gone completely, she's really become practical and evolved. And I said, so, okay. So to make that happen, it's 11:30 at night. What can you do about it now? And she said, I can ask my son to come with me to the bank tomorrow before he goes to work. So he doesn't have to worry about the money. I will get it from what the money I have. I said, okay, so your son is right here, ask him. And she immediately does. And now they're both laughing about it, that they have spent several months with pouring torrential rains, where every time it rains, it would rain inside the house, pouring out buckets and bucket loads. And they could have acted on this anytime. and they had the story that, oh God, we have no money. We've lost we've lost two earning members of the house. And they were laughing as a result of this. So the energy system is what brought that life force back in them. So examine, if there are certain things that are occurring in your life that you're not comfortable with, you're giving energy to something that is multiplying. You can stay in that realm and examine it. And I would say, once you get it, that, okay, I'm giving energy to something, which is why this is repeating, park it. And go into, what do I want more of? And if I got that, what would I give energy to? And then after that, this was the other piece I did with them, because I wanted to anchor this. I said, how are you feeling now? And she says, I feel that we've got our life. I feel like I felt when my husband and I had bought this small piece of land in Delhi and we were designing and building our little home. I feel like that, as if we are building again. And this time I'm building with my son and my grandchildren, and my husband and my other son are blessing us along the way. I feel more energy in this building. Before I was like, oh, yes, you do this. But now I'm feeling like I'm a part of this building. I said, okay, where else have you felt this? So now I'm going into, where else have you experienced what it is that you want more of? Then it gets anchored 3 times, 3 such scenarios. That energy of what you want more of gets anchored at a cellular level. And like I said, the zone of miracles is a regenerative zone. It completely regenerates and regenerates and regenerates. And I was witnessing that, given that we are going to be doing this session here. I was like, wow, how much better can it get? And it was just getting better and better and better. The 4th system is the soul presence system. If you are breathing, your soul is present. The moment you stop breathing only because your soul leaves your presence. And then you're not present anymore, you're gone. If you're breathing, soul presence system is active. Your soul is present. Your soul is limitless. It is eternal. It is indestructible. And it is constantly expanding in its reach. So at any point in time, and at all points in time, as a soul being, you are magnificent. Unequivocally. Whatever you may have done, as a soul being, you are magnificent. You are a magnificent being. And you are in this human form. This human form is a vessel of fulfillment of the expansion of your soul presence. And we make the human form as if that is all, that is the be all and end all of us. And it becomes, just like you put on a disguise and that disguise becomes your character. Our human form acts like as if we put on a disguise, and that is who we are. We are actually a soul presence. And the human form is a form which is a vessel of fulfillment with its amplifying frequency of love. But the moment the human form becomes a disguise, then you go around walking with all of the limitations of this disguise. Think about it. If you were to just think about, you've gone to a costume party and you're wearing a disguise, the disguise could get ripped, and then suddenly you're not that person. that that disguise costume was placed on, because the costume is ripped. But actually, who you are within still remains the same. You can wear another costume. So we are all magnificent beings. Any rips that occur only occur in this disguise part. Who we are is never changed. Whilst you have life, until your last breath, the only system that is active is your soul presence system. And a miracle is the norm in that realm. In that realm, all that exists is a miracle. Everything else is part of a form that you express yourself in. So once you get that you're a magnificent being in human disguise, and it's the human disguise that gets fractured, if at all, you can always repair that fracture, or you can just simply take it off as a costume and put on something else. The human form still remains, nothing's happened there, and the soul presence is completely intact. Now, once you get that, then at any moment, you can plug into what is magnificent about you. And when you're plugged into what is magnificent about me, you immediately plug into the magnificence of others. And you start seeing the magnificence in them. So I remember this, recently some of you heard me talk about my ex-mother-in-law crossed over. And so I had gone to Pune to be there at her funeral service. And there I met my ex-husband. This is the one that had subjected me to domestic violence for 10 years. So he was there. And now I'm in my soul presence. I mean, I just operate that way. And so once you go into the crematorium, and they did a very traditional form of cremation, you come home and then you go and shower up and change, and then you do whatever it is that you do. On the day of the cremation, everybody fasts. So we had all done all of that. And I expected from the crematorium, I will go to my place where I was living. And the people that had come for the crematorium, my brother-in-law and stuff, they said, no, you can't, you must come with us. And then let's complete the ritual at home, and then you can go. So we go home, complete the ritual at home. And then we are, I'm waiting for my cab. My ex-husband comes down with me. He says, I'll wait with you. And I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm like really sensing into me. I'm still feeling that magnificence. And I don't know how or why I asked him, I'm looking for these certificates, my college certificates, my degree certificates, our marriage certificate to prove name of change. I need it for my documentation. He says, well, I just made a bonfire of all of those, so I don't have any of those things. You couldn't expect me to keep it. And I say, yeah, I guess that's true. And then he says, it's what I really always admire about our time together. And he starts talking about these magnificent moments from our lives. And I start telling him about the magnificent moments, not in terms of moments, but more about what I saw were his magnificences that I see in my son, And I'm thinking I'm anchoring it to my son so he doesn't get there's no misunderstanding there at all. But actually I was sincerely, and then I say to him, I don't need to relate it to Sai, our son. These things are truly magnificent about you, and I'll always carry them with me as having had the opportunity of experiencing them for 17.5 years. So deeply grateful for everything that, occurred between us, and everything that you left me as a gift in terms of your magnificence. And then he started talking, and it was actually like quite a normal conversation. So literally, I was present in my magnificence. He was present in his magnificence. And then he says to me, I think I have a gift for you. I think you will find it of value. I brought it here for my cousin, but she just puts on a front about being this health conscious person, but you'll find it of value. And they are these kefir mushrooms, you know, the one that you make the kefir from, which is a wonderful prebiotic, probiotic health drink. And he gave me that, which is amazing. Like, talk about regenerative. This thing keeps regenerating every day, you know, and I'm like, my health is transforming day by day by day. This came about from that soul presence system, like really knowing, and that is the reality. That every time you have a breath, you are a soul presence. That is what gives you that life force. In that soul presence, you're a magnificent being. The fifth system, we have 5 minutes, is the being system. Sure, you're a human. I'm a human. And as a human, the way we show up first, before the doing happens, is in the form of a being. We show up as a being. And a human showing up as a being is the frequency of love. A human being is human being love. When a human shows up, think about it. If those of you who are mothers, or those of you who have witnessed the birth, and if you can always witness births online, there is more than enough video recordings of births that are there. You witness a being. Then the doing flows. So the being system anchors at a cellular level a knowingness that be and you have. Doing is meant to flow. The doing is meant to flow, and it flows. You simply have to choose to be. And the fact that your heart is singing, you can go into a dance because you're already present to this wonderful rhythm that's going on within you. And you can do the being doing dance. That's the magic of this particular system. The sixth system is the language. It's a language rhythm system. The spoken and the unspoken word. We communicate. You know, your being speaks so loud that I can't hear you. We speak the unspoken word through our beingness, and it is often much louder than the words that we use. So language isn't about the spoken word alone. Your language is your thoughts, your feelings, your connection to your spirit. And it shows up in your social dynamics, and it has a direct impact on your environment. So your language of miracles is an inquiry into what makes my heart sing. So now you are uncovering and revealing to yourself. And every time you reveal something, it shifts your way of being. And you plug into the rhythm of your truth. And your spoken words shifts. Your unspoken presence transforms. The seventh one is the spiritual system, the spirit duality ending system. If the spiritual system brings an end of duality, it literally is a system where you are inspired. In spirit, you are wired. It is the inspiration system which stations you in your spirit, and you are plugged into the spirit of everything. And when you are stationed in your own spirit, or when you're wired to the spiritedness of you, you only observe and notice, experience that which is making your heart sing. These are the 7 systems, and I've shared through certain stories how they worked out, and you can literally, listen to this again and again and again. Take each one in turn. It literally regenerates a thriving experience where survival just becomes a given. And once you're in this thriving space, there is no lack. There is only abundance, awesomeness and abundance, free flowing from all sources known and unknown on an ever increasing and regenerative basis. Over to you, Catherine. And I would just like to introduce what I'm going to be doing next. So over to you.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and introduce? I am so excited. We are not, as we said when we started, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And I just love, Mynoo, that you brought this all back home to where what you give energy to is what you get more of. So I just wanted to say, I feel like this, like be Mynoo. That's kind of my new goal, is to expect it to surprise and delight every single day. And I think that's what you represent, Mynoo, and that's what you bring forth in everything that you do. And I'm so excited we have an opportunity to do this in our own lives with what you've shared. My battery may go dead, so I'm going to bid everyone a goodbye until we meet again. And Mynoo, back over to you to let everyone know what's next.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. I will also share the significance of 108. I did not want to take up the time today, but 108 as a number itself is a very powerful number, and it's important to understand its significance. So I will share that separately. What I'm guided to do next is the 12 building blocks of this human body. Because like I said, we are a soul presence. There's no question about that. Every breath you take is a reinforcement. You are eternal, you are limitless, you are indestructible, and you are constantly expanding. And this soul presence expresses itself through this human body. This human body has gone through certain experiences during the COVID phenomenon and many other experiences in terms of mental, emotional, and all of that we go through our life. There are 12 building blocks that are called to be reinvigorated. Some of them are to be researched in their originating intent, so that whatever damage might have occurred over the years that we have accumulated, various habits or various experiences that our bodies may have been subject to, they can be released from our system. And the energy signatures are out of our system, and our bodies feel free to operate from the originating intent of each and every aspect of this body. There are 12 building blocks that enable that to happen. So over the next several weeks, I've been told there'll be 52 of these sessions. So it's quite a deep body of work, as you've seen with the 108 Pearls of Wisdom, where we are going to go through these building blocks, and we are going to work with each one, and we're going to work with a very specific layer of each one each week. So that's what the series that we are beginning. We will continue on Thursday evenings as usual in Pacific time, and Friday mornings or middle of the night for those in Europe and in India. So looking forward to that series. Over to you, Catherine, to finally complete our session today. Would love to hear any feedback any of you may have in our group. So please do share that.
And thank you again. I cannot believe it's literally been 2.5 years, 108 Pearl of Wisdoms and more. And Mynoo, how amazing. We did it. It's a miracle in itself. Thank you all for coming every week. We can't wait to share with you more. I'll be joined by a couple of other hosts. So we'll be doing this on a weekly basis. Big love. Can't wait to see you again, and go out and make it happen. Enjoy.
Know that expecting and accepting miracles are the norm. They just so.
I'm waiting for my rainbow.
Yes. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye, Mynoo.
Bye, bye, Mynoo.
Bye.
Bye, Mynoo.
Okay.
Wonderful, precious today.
Thank you.
Beautiful.